Scottsdale. What can you say, guys? I mean, another loss where they shoot themselves in the foot. Jason Staveley alongside Tom Zitter and Shane Dale. Guys, what was your main takeaway? I mean, this did it not look like this is just another one that they gave away?
What's up, gentlemen? Good to see you. Happy fall.
Yeah, how about this?
Cheers.
As Shane says, you gotta love
the
all about the gourds this time of year. All about the gourds.
Yeah. That was a bummer yesterday. You know, here's what I wrote at the beginning of my blog yesterday with my analysis of the game. I thought the Cardinals were past performances like they had yesterday. I had a problem with it on a lot of levels. You know, 2 weeks ago we were talking about what their main issues were in a loss. Turnover differential, lack of discipline. You know, those penalties killed them yesterday. And for a game that we thought there was going to be the added element of the emotional level, you know, winning this game for Bruce Arians, where he'd spent 8 years as offensive coordinator, it never happened. So troubling, disappointing, but no time to really bask in it too much, because reality hits a week from tonight when they play Baltimore. So the season progresses, but that's one that got away from them that they should have had yesterday.
I got to say, I'm shocked, not because they lost, because of how it happened. You know, they in the first half, you know, they were up 10-3, didn't score nearly as many points as they should have, but still, in the second half of the game, I figured, you know what, reality's going to set in. They outgained the Cardinals, or they outgained the Steelers by 220 yards in the first half. Reality's going to set in. They're going to go up 24-3. You know, by the end of the third quarter, and the opposite happened. I was just stunned that the Cardinals didn't take over, and the opposite happened in the second half of that game.
Now, our main challenge is to keep the energy level up today. We're going to try to stay positive, but it's tough, you guys. This feels tougher than the Rams loss, just because you let it happen once, you learn from your mistakes, and
okay, you know, here, Jason, I think we got to get your microphone situation straightened out here for a second. But you know what? One of the main problems with yesterday, and the thing that became so obvious, is the Cardinals don't know how to play when they're behind. I mean, they are dominant when they get that lead, and that's their MO this year. Force turnovers, have big plays, offensively, defensively, special teams. When they get into a situation where they're coming from behind, they haven't yet, with this year's team, figured it out, which is weird because last year they were good in those types of games, but they've been so dominant in those 4 wins, and it's come so easy that just, this is human nature, just psychologically, it does happen where when things aren't going your way, they didn't know what to do, and that's what it looked like in the second half yesterday. They let a third-string quarterback beat them. You cannot ever do that in the NFL, especially if you're an elite team.
You know what the common denominator was, Tom, for both of those losses to the Rams, to the Steelers, was the Cardinals were down by less than one touchdown with a couple minutes left. Carson Palmer makes some bad throws and it cost them the game. That was the difference. Carson Palmer didn't come through. It wasn't just his fault. But Carson Palmer didn't come through in the stretch like we expected them to do last year. That's so far is the big difference between last year and this year. The good team, they found ways to win these close games last year. This year they're not doing it.
Yeah, we were hoping that loss to St. Louis was a fluke, you know? Apparently it's not. You know, as dominant as the Cardinals were in their 4 wins, you think it's going to be that easy every single week, and it just is not in the NFL. Pittsburgh had something to play for yesterday as well. They've really salvaged their season with that Monday night win against San Diego and what they did yesterday. When they get Big Ben back, they're going to be in great shape in their division, at least to make a run at Cincinnati eventually here. But, you know, yesterday's loss was in, there's so many different layers, and we're going to get to them throughout the day. So many other subplots about the road trip and the game and just the emotional aspects of yesterday as well. You know, they just don't get very balanced when they're playing from behind either. I mean, Andre Ellington had 1 carry yesterday. 1. He's supposed to be a big part of this offense when he came back, but they were just in a situation where they had to play catch-up. Carson threw too many times, and it just wasn't working.
So my concern was the Cardinals were going to go one-dimensional because the Steelers were the best run defense the Cardinals have faced so far this year. Not an elite unit, but better than what they've seen so far, and they did enough to hamper the Cardinals' running game that Bruce Arians has said, you know, let's just even. And you know, Carson Palmer threw for over 400 yards. John Brown had almost 200 receiving yards. But again, those turnovers, you know, and when you become one-dimensional, you have a better chance of giving up those turnovers.
Jason, while we get your microphone straightened out, you just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down for a yes or no.
Okay.
Did you think that a third-string quarterback playing for Pittsburgh yesterday would be able to have a better quarterback rating than Carson Palmer? Right, I'm with you, man. Good point. Double thumbs down. What was that all about? Third-string quarterback hadn't thrown a
really
touchdown.
Wish I could talk because I have a lot to say about that. We'll get to it, though. We got a whole hour.
Third-string quarterback had not thrown a touchdown since college, since the Cotton Bowl when he played for Oklahoma. That was unbelievable yesterday. Pittsburgh was down in their offensive line. They were missing defensive starters. Roethlisberger didn't play. Then they got Vick out of the game. Everything was right there. And second half, meltdown city, and it was over.
I'm starting to get concerned about long-term the Cardinals losing these close games because we know they can win blowouts. Okay, last year they had that confidence that knowing that they can win these close games. This year, I kind of wish that next week Monday at Baltimore is a close game just for the fact that they have a chance to win it because it's got to seep into your psyche after a while. That okay, we're going to find a way to lose these games. Eventually, it's just human nature, and so I'm hoping the Cardinals can turn it around. Hopefully, in the next several weeks, find a way to win one of those close games and turn it around.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the other thing, Shane. At the end of the game yesterday in his press conference, Bruce Arians was asked about the officiating. Good for you, BA, for not bringing anything up about that. There was bad calls again yesterday, just like there were in that Rams game. But let's not even go there. That has nothing to do with anything. And they just never were able to recover from the fact that, Pittsburgh didn't go away like they're used to their opponent, and that happening. It was cold yesterday. I think the players had been on the road a long time. They were ready to come home, and man, could you imagine if they were 5-1 with Seattle being, what are they, 2-4 right now? I mean, what a difference that would make. Luckily, it really didn't hurt the Cardinals in the standings. St. Louis was off yesterday. San Francisco won their game, but they're a non-factor this year, in my opinion. And Seattle just continues to show that they're going to have some issues this year, and the magic has just gone from that team. So, missed opportunity. They all know that. Hopefully they get it together.
Non-factor.
Without it.
Non-factor. Like a baller.
Non-factor for the 2015 season.
Right. But we talked about it yesterday in the sports department. That doggone Tom Zenner. We have to kind of tip our cap because he's been on this Seattle Seahawks team since the beginning, saying they're not the same team. They're not going to be really that competitive. And Shane and I kind of said it is still a little bit early, but my goodness, how many times can you blow it in the fourth quarter before we say this is not the Seattle we know?
Have the Seahawks been eliminated from playoff contention yet? No?
You're right.
Okay. I just want to make that clear.
But why do you guys feel the need to defend them every week? I mean, they clearly have problems in their second.
Because of what they've done historically.
They haven't earned it this year. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I just think
same coach,
it's not a fluke anymore.
You know what
it's
they
a trend.
Tom? You know what they say, Tom, about people who don't learn from history? I mean, again, we'll see. I'm taking it on a week-to-week basis. Like Jake Plummer said last week, what matters is what happens the last month of the season. You have a chance to win chance to go to the playoffs in the last month of the season. That's all that matters.
The logic, just you can't apply it subjectively. I mean, look at San Francisco. They were good the last few years. All right, you could say that about a lot of different teams.
Though you can't compare. That's apples to oranges. They lose half their defense. They lose one of the best head coaches in the NFL. Seattle relatively has their same staff that with the NFC Championship fight.
With a much inferior offensive line, chaos in their secondary, and their touchdown-making tight end isn't making it happen for them this year.
All right, we welcome you guys back. We got everything squared away here at Four Peaks Brewing Company in Scottsdale. Breaking down this Week 6 loss to Pittsburgh. We just talked about the red zone conversion, or lack thereof. They had 4 opportunities in the red zone. They converted 1. Tom, what do you pin that on? Is it mental mistakes? Is it Carson Palmer not being the Carson Palmer we've seen? What is it?
They were on their heels most of the game yesterday. And again, this is the type of team when things don't go the way they think they're going to go, when they're not just falling into place with big play after big play. And I know we made this point when we had some of the technical difficulties, but no big plays yesterday. None against St. Louis. Cardinals are the most explosive team in the NFL, and they've had 2 out of 6 games where they haven't had any big plays. So lack of performance in the red zone yesterday was just, you combine an off day for 5 or 6 guys, which is what they had yesterday, and you don't have any results in the red zone. And then added thing of playing on the road. It was cold. It was the coldest they've been all year. I mean, it was colder than I thought it was going to be. That cold front moved into the East Coast and hit it hard after, a pretty mild fall so far. So, man, I'm sure the theme is forget about this one after they look at the film today and hopefully learn from all those mistakes yesterday, but they have to. They got to get that swagger back quickly. And what a perfect opportunity to do it back at home on Monday Night Football and give the whole country a chance to get a little taste of what you think that you are about as a team this year.
Yeah. I think the Cardinals are going to hand it to the Ravens. We're going to get into that a little bit. I think they're going to take out 8 days of frustration on the Ravens next week. But I think we weren't on just a couple minutes ago. We were talking about the single most misleading stat in football is total yards. The Cardinals plus 220 in the first half, plus 160 for the game. Means nothing. Turnovers, it all comes down. And in both games, the common theme, the Cardinals were -3, 3-0 in turnovers. That's what it comes down to.
And they were -6 last week.
Or +6.
Or +6,
a 9 turnover
Their opponent
swing.
was -6.
And I know the Steelers are a little bit better, but still, a non-Ben Roethlisberger-led team, that should have been a win.
Right.
And again, like I said, I'm not shocked they lost. I'm shocked the way it happened.
You know what else is really interesting? I think the Cardinals would have won the game if Michael Vick stayed in the game.
Oh, 100%.
If Mike Vick stayed in.
Yeah.
I think Landry Jones, you could say, won that game
100%.
for Pittsburgh.
I mean, it still
shocking.
hurts my head thinking about that Mr. Mustache
Doesn't
from
it surprise you
Oklahoma.
that he wasn't the clear number 2 there?
Yeah.
I mean, that they had to bring in a guy like Mike Vick?
I don't know how you can kind of predict a performance like that. The last NFL conversation Landry Jones has been mentioned in is he an NFL caliber quarterback?
Yeah. I actually talked to a Steelers fan last week about, I jokingly said, hey, you guys can always bring in Landry Jones and Michael Vick fails. You had a good laugh about it.
Right, like it would be
now who's
Tuesday.
laughing now?
Now who's laughing? Well, speaking of that QB battle, let's take a look at the numbers. It hurts my head looking at these numbers. Carson Palmer, 29 of 45 for 421 yards. Not too shabby. A touchdown, 2 picks, a passer rating, 83.7.
Yeah, that's terrible for him.
Landry Jones, guy who hadn't thrown a touchdown in his NFL career. The last touchdown he threw, he was in an Oklahoma Sooners jersey. 8 for 12, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns, a passer rating of 149.3.
And perfect is
almost perfect.
Perfect is 158.3.
Yeah.
My goodness.
The Cardinals defense did a lot to help them, including that last long touchdown. They have this thing too, the Cardinals. They put so much stock yesterday in that drive before Carson Palmer threw that interception, where they were taking their time, right? It was clear that, hey, we're putting all our eggs in this basket on this drive. It's all or nothing, right? They weren't even thinking about, okay, if this doesn't work out, let's get the ball back and make sure we have enough time. So when that didn't work and he threw the interception and the game was basically over at that point, just like in that Rams game, the defense let them go all the way down the field to get some garbage yards.
Still had a chance to get the ball back with a few seconds left. And both times it was Todd Gurley for the Rams, ran out, had a big run. Probably he could have scored a touchdown, but he decided not to, much to the chagrin of his fantasy
Right, he could have walked right in.
And then you guys look back at that play, that last touchdown play, that long 88-yard play. Look back, Patrick Peterson kind of pulls up about halfway through. And I don't know if it's because he didn't have a chance to make a tackle, but it seems like he kind of gave up on that play a little bit.
It's kind of symbolic of the whole second half.
Wasn't it?
The whole thing just bothers me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just not seeing a championship-level team out there yesterday, and I thought the Cardinals were past that type of performance.
And like Bruce Arians said, they had a chance to put them away in the first half. And they didn't let the door wide open on the road against a decent team. You can't do that.
Here's a statistic for you guys. Landry Jones, the first Steelers quarterback not named Ben Roethlisberger to throw 2 touchdowns since Charlie Batch in 2010. Before that, it was Tommy Maddox in 2003.
The XFL star Tommy Maddox.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, no one saw this coming. You're absolutely right. If Michael Vick stayed in this game, he played about the worst game I've ever seen him play in his NFL career.
Then he got dirt in his eye.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you can't tough that one out.
Yeah.
Well, does he no longer wear the visor?
Yeah.
Remember back in the day?
Yeah.
I thought he did too.
Oh. But yeah, I mean, I cannot believe Landry came out and did something like that. Now let's talk about probably, I would say, the main contributor of yesterday's loss, that being mental mistakes. 9 penalties, 111 yards, just not focused. Would you guys agree?
Totally agree with that, and that makes it even more inexcusable. You play 16 games, right? You can understand every once in a while if you aren't at 100% level. But not this game.
No.
The Pittsburgh game where we thought, okay, doesn't even need to be said. Bruce Arians doesn't have to give any extra motivational message because the players all want to win this one for their coach in Pittsburgh. And to be that discombobulated that lacking in detail, and that's embarrassing for a team that
Shocking.
prides themselves on discipline and not having a lot of penalty yards. Being over 111 yards is just horrendous. And you combine that with the turnover differential of -3, you got no shot to win a game in the NFL.
I will say there were some pretty bad calls or no calls in that game. Not blaming the loss on the refs, but at the end of the first half, the Cardinals had a touchdown called back on a very questionable offensive pass interference call. 2 plays later, Michael Floyd, his jersey gets blatantly tugged, which is an easy pass interference call. And the Steelers, even Mike Pereira was saying that was an easy call. That was missed. So again, that prevented the Cardinals from going up 17-3 at halftime. That could have changed the complexion. But still, you're up by a touchdown, going into halftime, facing a third-string quarterback. You can't keep shooting yourself in the foot, not only with turnovers, but with penalties, with personal fouls and all that.
And you know what else is interesting? You know, you think about the Packers, you think about New England. You never really come out of a game thinking, man, they got really robbed by the referees, right? They're at a level where, for whatever reason, things seem to go their favor, right? And the Cardinals just aren't there yet.
Is it a coincidence that the terrible towers are the same color as the penalty flags?
I know, right?
Just a thought.
Let me ask you this, though. Do certain teams earn a little bit more respect from officiating crews?
For sure. And I think it's subconscious. I mean, the referees are human, right? And or maybe there's a familiarity with a different team. You know, these referees watch a ton of game film, or maybe it's a team like St. Louis, for instance, where Jeff Fisher is on the competition committee. You know, I believe that there is something to be said about that. I know for a fact there is. You know, when you've been on the competition committee, I'm not saying that, you know, there's a mandate from the league office on down saying make sure, you know, you take care of the Rams on some of these questionable calls. But I just think that, you know, referees see these plays. It's a bang decision, especially on how do you get some of those calls wrong from yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, they're so
I think
right in front of you, right and wrong. And Pittsburgh is notorious for always getting the breaks. They always are. Go back and look at the Super Bowl,
especially at
against
Heinz
Seattle.
Field.
I think some of it just sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one. I think sometimes, Tom, it just comes down to incompetence. I mean, there's no way that you just, I mean, either you just don't see it or it doesn't register in your mind that tug on Michael Floyd's jersey. I mean, sometimes it's just incompetence, and the incompetence tends to go against you. So, you know, it's one of those things. But I don't know. I think maybe there's a little bit of that home cooking, like at the crowd, like when the crowd's screaming, 50,000 people are screaming for a call. I think maybe you're a little more likely to throw that flag than otherwise. But again, I think sometimes the simplest explanation is that sometimes they're just not very good at